All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to be in the 147-pound division, where yesterday on Twitter, there was a bunch of going back and forth about an announcement that was supposed to be made today related to the Errol Spence Jr. versus Terence Crawford fight, potentially Keith Thurman fight. So I want to give you my thoughts on that and the details associated with it. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to be in the 147-pound division, just giving you a small update on what is being said about the Errol Spence Jr.'s next fight with either Terence Crawford or Keith Thurman. There was some word out on Twitter yesterday, specifically from a writer, well-known writer that goes by the name of Steve Kim. On his Twitter page, that led a lot of people to believe that there was going to be a big announcement made today. And of course, people implied that that would be the Errol Spence Jr. fight coming up, whether that is against Keith Thurman or whether it is against Terence Crawford. Now, before I get into the details of it, though, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you are new to the channel, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Really would love to have you on these continual conversations we have going on. Also, to everybody that is a longtime subscriber and supporter, thank you guys so much for your support. Really, really does mean a lot. But let's chop it up, okay? So Steve Kim puts out this thing and says that, you know, there's going to be a big announcement tomorrow. Guess who it is? So all through Twitter, I'm getting notes. I get notes sent to myself about the fight and saying, hey, man, we think this fight is going to get announced tomorrow between Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford. I say either Errol Spence, Terence Crawford, or Errol Spence, Keith Thurman. However, coming from Steve Kim, I would not really put too much, I wouldn't put too much weight on that. I would not keep my hopes up. And let me explain why that is. Because if you looked at what Steve Kim had said in several tweets before that, he brought up something about the coverage of certain fights in the sport of boxing. What he said was that promoters that ban fighters or writers from events and antagonize writers should not be surprised that their events don't get good coverage. Now, why would he be saying that? Because the word is out on the street that Steve Kim, who was a writer for ESPN. I do believe right now he's a writer for Ring Magazine. Before that, when I first heard of Steve Kim in the early 2000s, man, 20-some years. Yeah, like 20 years ago, he was a writer for a website called Max Boxing. Steve Kim has never been very friendly towards any fighters associated with the PBC and has been a continual negative mouthpiece for them for going on, is in his second decade of doing it. So when he cries about that, to me, I look at him and say, man, you got to be kidding me. You think people are going to continue to give you passes to their fight for you to continue to trash them? By the way, that's exactly what other promoters do as well. If you put out negative commentary about Top Rank, you will get banned from a Top Rank event. You will not get access to their events. Because those guys and most of these writers in boxing are glorified PR agents. They're not, a lot of them are they're just in public relations. They're not doing real journalism where they are really trying to they're giving you all the valuable information that you need. No, these guys, especially guys like Steve Kim, have just take shots at fighters. And I remember the first few times that I read them, I was like, wow, man, he and Dougie Fisher really don't like Floyd Mayweather Jr. Like, what did Floyd Mayweather Jr. do to them to deserve this type of animosity that they had towards him? And it just continued. So he puts that information out about what fight do you think is going to get announced next. He is obviously kind of doing what Terence Crawford does, where he puts something out on Twitter and has people kind of, assuming what he's talking about is the Errol Spence fight. But he's more than likely not talking about that. So unless something really comes out today, I'll take my word back in a minute. I'll correct the record in a minute if I'm wrong. Honestly, I just think that out of that particular writer is really just a way to really throw salt at the PBC and have a way for people to come onto his Twitter page and leave a bunch of negative comments about the fight itself. Similarly, you have other guys that are closely associated that I closely associate with Steve Kim. Guys like Mike Montero, who was literally on Ring Magazine's YouTube page and is doing the stuff for the commentary and the content for Ring Magazine's YouTube page, complaining about the pay-per-view fight for the pay-per-view price for Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia, because in this particular instance, it's going to be I think it's $84.99, where the previous fight that they had with Hector Garcia was $74.99. Man, just talking. Look, first of all, again, never ever have an opportunity to say anything positive about the PBC, and whenever they do it, it's very, very backhanded. You also have other people that's sharing tweets with things like when Steve Fulton Jr. made the fight with Monster Inoue, you had people out there retweeting comments like, hey, I wonder, is he really still with Al Heyman? Because we know Al Heyman never lets the big fights happen. Man, those guys have been just like a little media cabal taking shots at these guys for years. So anyway, as far as the announcement going on with, something with Errol and Terence Crawford, the only thing that I saw yesterday that took place where it could possibly have been some type of, somebody alluding to that fight is when Errol Spence responded to a Twitter comment, somebody commented on his page and said, hey, man, you need to get a fight, because he was talking about John Wick and how John Wick, he went to go see the movie John Wick and how there was, it seemed like he looked like he KILL'd a small town in that particular movie, and said, then somebody responded and said, hey, man, well, wasn't it crazy how he fell down all these stairs? And whatever the case was, it wound up coming into a conversation about, obviously, Errol Spence Jr. not needing a bulletproof suit. What he really needs is he needs to get a fight. And Errol says, hey, getting a fight ain't ish. That ain't ish to get, right? So obviously, man, if he wants to get a fight, he can get a fight when he wants to get a fight. But even that is very, very loosely connected to the Terence Crawford Errol thing. I also heard people talking about how the fight was going to get announced last weekend. You hear people talk about how it's going to get announced during the Gervonta Davis fight. Look, man, we'll see when it gets announced, if it gets announced. Same thing with Deontay Wilder and these guys. I think they're getting close to those fights getting announced, but clearly it's going to be the summer schedule, and those guys are going to announce them probably in a group a little bit later. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. Hope you guys didn't get too hyped up if you had heard that information. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Deuces.